Three heads, old yang. Two tails, one head. Yang yang. Two tails, one head. Yang yang. Two heads, one tail. Yang yin. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. 3 tails, old yin. We'll start by reading a brief passage from Vitality Energy Spirit, a Taoist source book. This comprehensive anthology traces the teaching on the 3 treasures, vitality, energy, and spirit through the long history of Taoism, along with brief selections from the classic texts of Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu. The book presents a rich selection of tales and sayings from Taoist literature, as well as a broad range of writings from the Complete Reality School. Attaining the Tao. The Tao is something miraculous, spiritual. It has an essence, empty. It has no form. It is unfathomable whether we follow after it or go forth to meet it. It cannot be found in shadow or echo. No one knows why it is as it is. Supreme sages attained it in antiquity. It has been transmitted to the present by subtle means. The Tao has a profound power that gradually transforms the body and the spirit. The body is mastered along the way, becoming united with the spirit. One who has attained this is called a spiritual person. The essence of spirit is open and fluid. Its substance never changes or disappears. Because the body is mastered through the Tao, it has no birth or death. In concealment, the body is the same as spirit. Revealed, the spirit is the same as energy. This is how it is possible to walk on water and fire without harm, to cast no shadow in the sunlight or moonlight. Whether to remain alive or disappear is up to you at this point. There is no gap between leaving the world and entering the world. If even the body, which is material, can reach intangible sublimation, how much more, the more so can the spiritual knowledge, which becomes more far-reaching as it grows deeper. The classic on the living spirit says, when the body and spirit are united, that become the true body. The scripture on rising in the West also says, body and mind join, thus making it possible to last forever. There are, however, differences in depth of power along the way of open non-reification. If the power is profound, it affects the body as well, but if it is shallow, it affects only the mind. One whose body is affected is a spiritual person. One whose mind is affected only gains intelligent awareness and cannot escape physical death. Why? Intelligence is a function of the mind. When used too much, the mind is fatigued. When one first gains a little wisdom, one is joyful and becomes loquacious. Spirit and energy leak out, so no spiritual light bathes the body, ultimately resulting in early death. Therefore, the Tao is hard to complete. This is what the classics call liberation from the corpse. Therefore, great people hide their light and conceal their brilliance. This is how they gain complete fulfillment. Stabilizing the spirit, taking good care of energy, they study the Tao unminding. When the spirit merges with the Tao, this is called attainment of the Tao. A classic says, those who assimilate themselves to the Tao are also absorbed by the Tao. In the mountains, there is a kind of jade that keeps plants and trees from withering. Similarly, if people embrace the Tao, it will keep their physical bodies strong. By steeping oneself in the Tao for a long time, one can transform substance so that it is the same as spirit, refine the body into something subtle, and merge with the Tao. Then the illumination of knowledge is boundless, and the body is infinitely transcendent. One makes the totality of matter and emptiness one's function. One sets aside creation in achieving realization. One adapts from reality without convention. This is the power of the Tao. Our bottom or inner trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as solid, 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 which is Qian, heaven. Qian is suprahuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change, and what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and the seeds fall to earth. Our top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as open, 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 or broken, broken, broken. This is Kun, earth. Kun is earth, open to receive and support what comes to her, providing for its full development. She makes inspiration manifest, gives it form, and sustains its growth. Earth is available to be used, ready to lend her strength to the work without limit. She protects and accepts all things in their totality, present and potential, in an unconditional embrace. Earth is Mother, found in the southwest in the harvest time of late summer and early autumn. Kun, earth above Qian, heaven, give us hexagram. (11). Once our changing lines 1 and 6 transform into their young opposites, our old yang will become a young yin, and our old yin will become a young yang. This will give us a bottom or inner trigram of broken, solid, solid, or open, whole, whole. Which is the trigram Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants, whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Our top or outer trigram of our supporting hexagram, once the old yin becomes a young yang, we will have broken, broken, solid. which gives us Gen Mountain. The mountain is still. It is a limit where you must stop. Gen brings each cycle to an end, defining a space where we can recognize, assimilate, and complete our experience. He creates a personal still center amid change, where we can retreat for perspective and a firm foundation for new growth. He is well-grounded, confident, and of independent spirit. He is still and knows. Mountain is the youngest son, child of maturity. In the cycle of directions and seasons, he is the northeast, late winter, approaching spring, the pivot between cycles. Gen Mountain above Xun, wind or wood, will give us hexagram 18. If we want to understand the answer to the question that we bring to the I Ching when we consult the oracle, that question having the context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time, we will need to know how the parts of our reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. We will begin with our I Ching commentaries with the Taoist I Ching by I-ming, written in 1796 while he was a Taoist adept, and Thomas Cleary has translated it. Our primary hexagram 11 has the succinct definition of tranquility, harmony of strength and flexibility. This being our primary hexagram, tranquility. Our supporting hexagram 18 has the short definition of degeneration, correcting degeneration by abandoning the false and returning to the true. We'll start in the commentary section, which has our changing lines, and they are the most focused, specific part of our reading that take precedence over all the other elements. So once we move on to the back, which has the text, actually, we'll start with the text section, then we'll get to the commentary section. The text section has the changing lines, the commentary section does not. So once we arrive at the commentary section, we'll take note that the thing that we read just before the changing lines section was the most specific part of our reading. Our primary hexagram 11, Tranquility. The small goes, the great comes. This is auspicious and developmental. Explanation. Tranquility means going through in harmony. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is earth, submissive, and below is heaven, strong. Yang is strong inside, yin is submissive outside. Strength and submission unified, yin and yang correspond. It therefore is called tranquility. This hexagram represents the mixing of yin and yang. It follows on the previous hexagram, nurturance by the small. In nurturance by the small, 1 yin nurtures 5 yangs. Yin energy is in charge and yang energy is not active. Being small in nurturance and unable to be great in nurturance, the activity cannot succeed. The way to successful activity requires that great and small be unharmed, that yin and yang balance each other, yin obeying yang, yang governing yin. Only when yin and yang are harmoniously combined is it possible to accomplish things. Therefore, the way of tranquility is that the small goes and the great comes. It is auspicious and developmental. The small is yin and the great is yang. The small goes means yin submits. The great comes means yang is strong. With yang strong on the inside and yin submissive on the outside, the primordial gradually returns and acquired conditioning gradually melts away. Thereby it is possible to reach the realm of pure yang with no yin. It is a matter of course then to be fortunate in action and for activity to develop. However, in the path of bringing about tranquility, there is a firing process. There is a course of work. If advancing and withdrawing are done with the proper timing, and one is strong yet acts docilely, using docility to nurture strength, one can bring about tranquility and preserve it, understanding essence through understanding life, attaining non-striving through striving, completing the great way. Of this one can be sure. Moving on to our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you or your relation and your relationship to it all. 18, Degeneration. Correcting degeneration is greatly developmental. It is beneficial to cross great rivers 3 days before the start, 3 days after the start. Explanation. Degeneration means deterioration. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is mountain, stopping, and below is wind, penetrating. It represents 1 yin entering and yang stopping it. Also, wind is inside stopping, representing stopping the yin so that it does not advance upward. It includes the meaning of correcting degeneration. This hexagram represents abandoning the false and returning to the true. It follows on the preceding hexagram, joy. Joy is harmonious action in accord with the time and in accord with truth, not acting in any way that would be improper so as to prevent degeneracy of action. When people are first born, they are utterly good with no evil, integrated with natural principle. Originally, there is nothing to cultivate, nothing to realize. Since there is no defect, there is nothing to correct. But when they get to be 16 years old, yang peaks, producing yin. By the development of habits, they become estranged from what is near by nature. This is like the 1 yin of wind arising below 2 yangs. As negative energy advances, the original being degenerates. However, before the celestial Tao has yin, it cannot be yang. Before human affairs have degeneration, they cannot be repaired. This is why the path of correction of degeneracy is valuable. The path of correction of degeneracy is like the one yang of mountain stopping on top of two yins, not injured by negative influences. Using this one yang to go back to the root and return to life is the study of working on the fundamental. When the fundamental is established, the path develops. Once you recover your potential, it is like it was always there. This is attaining great development in degeneracy. Great development is not in degeneration, but in correcting degeneration. The way to correct degeneracy is not in empty tranquility without action. It is necessary to work in the midst of great danger and difficulty, to act in the dragon's pool and the tiger's lair. Only then can one restore one's original being, cultivating it into something indestructible. This is why degeneration is developmental, and it is beneficial to cross great rivers. Great rivers are most dangerous and hard to cross. If great rivers are crossed beneficially without injury, then places of little or no danger cannot harm. However, the benefit of crossing great rivers involves action and process, from which no deviation can be admitted. 3 days before the start, 3 days after the start is the secret of the active process. The yin and yang in people is like the waning and waxing of the moon. In the first 3 nights of the moon's appearance, the yang light appears in the southwest. This is represented by the trigram thunder. On the night of the 15th, the moon appears in the east. This is represented by the trigram heaven. On the 13th, 14th, and 15th, the light becomes round. This is 3 days before the start. On the 16th, 17th, and 18th, the light starts to wane. This is 3 days after the start. When people's yang energy is pure, this is 3 days before the start. Once their yin energy has arisen, this is 3 days after the start. Before the start is yang, after the start is yin. This is boundary of primordial and temporal yin and yang. This is the boundary of primordial and temporal yin and yang. People who practice the Tao need to know clearly whether things are degenerate or not. It is all in this boundary of before the start and after the start. When yang energy is about to become pure, ward off yin to preserve yang. After yin energy has arisen, repel yin to restore yang. If you ward off yin energy before it arises and repel yin energy after it arises, then the yang energy that has not degenerated can be preserved, and that which has degenerated can be restored. This is the real science of working on the fundamental, getting rid of falsehood and returning to reality. Correctness is unfailingly developmental. Development is unfailingly beneficial. We'll now go back and read changing lines 1 and 6, which are our most focused part of the reading and take precedence over all the other elements. They put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. The changing line 1 has the general context of inklings just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. And line 6 has the general context of beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Hexagram 11, Tranquility. Changing line 1, when pulling out a reed by the roots, other reeds come with it. It is auspicious to go forth. Explanation. When one yang subtly arises, all the yangs have motivation. This is like pulling out the connected root of a reed, bringing other reeds with it. One who is going to bring about tranquility sets about cultivation on the appearance of this first yang, gradually gathering and refining positive energy, from subtle to manifest, so there is no yang that is not strong and no yin that is not submissive. This is why it says it is auspicious to go forth. This is firmly taking advantage of the right time to bring about tranquility. Changing line 6. The castle walls crumble back into dry moats. Don't use the army. Giving orders in one's own domain, even if right, there will be regret. Explanation. At the end of tranquility, the culmination of submission, if you just know the submission of tranquility and not the opposition of tranquility, by not preventing it early on, you will surely fail in the end. This is like castle walls crumbling back into the dry moats. At this time, good things are already gone and cannot be used for strength. So the text says, don't use the army. Misfortunes are at hand and regret does not. Misfortunes are at hand and regret does no good. So it says, giving orders in one's own domain, even if right, there will be regret. This is being weak and not knowing to safeguard tranquility early on. So there's a time to bring about tranquility and a time to preserve tranquility. Striving and non-striving both have their methods. Acting according to the time, based on the proper method, being strong where appropriate, being docile where appropriate. By strength, one affects tranquility, and by docility, one preserves tranquility. If one is able to effect and preserve tranquility, why worry that one will not be fortunate and not develop and not accomplish the path? We will now turn to the commentary section and read both our primary and supporting hexagrams, which give a little bit more broad context. Tranquility, earth above, heaven below. When heaven and earth commune, there is tranquility. Thus does the ruler administer the way of heaven and earth and assist the proper balance of heaven and earth, thereby helping the people. Tranquility means success. Above is earth, below is heaven. The energy of heaven rises from below. The energy of earth descends from above. So the energies of heaven and earth, the celestial and the mundane, mix together, and myriad things are produced. This is the image of tranquility. What the ruler sees in this is that when heaven and earth, yin and yang, mix together, myriad things are born. And when the celestial and earthly elements in humans commune, everything is at peace. On this basis does the ruler then administer the way of heaven and earth and assist the proper balance of heaven and earth. People are born with the energies of yin and yang and the 5 elements, so they have these energies of yin and yang and the 5 elements in their bodies. When these energies are active in the body, they constitute the 5 virtues. The 5 virtues in essence have a natural course which does not require forced effort. This is called the path of following nature. The ruler who understands the principle of the mutual generation of the 5 elements and causes humanity, justice, courtesy, knowledge, and truthfulness to flow as one energy is administering the natural way of heaven and earth, giving life to humans. The functions of the 5 virtues have their appropriate balance. It will not do to cling to any of them at the expense of the others. This is what is called the teaching of practicing the Tao. The ruler who understands the principle of the mutual overcoming of the 5 elements causes benevolence, justice, courtesy, knowledge, and truthfulness each to attain its appropriate proportion, assisting the proper balance of heaven and earth as it endows humans. Administering the way, assisting in its balance, is the means whereby to accomplish the will of the world and achieve the work of the world, thus helping the people, causing everyone to take the way of heaven and earth as their way, and to take the balance of heaven and earth for their balance, preserving universal harmony and tact, each realizing one's true nature and purpose in life. Who does not have the way of heaven and earth? Who does not have the balance of heaven and earth? The only problem is inability to administer and assist the way of its balance. If one can administer and assist the way and balance of heaven and earth, then it is possible to preserve the primordial complete and to dissolve acquired conditioning. When the primordial is complete and conditioning is dissolved, being is natural and action is appropriate. The 5 elements are one energy, the 5 virtues merge, nature and life are stabilized. What is more, one shares in the functions of heaven and earth. One shares the eternity of heaven and earth. What can compare to that tranquility? And our supporting hexagram 18 in the commentary section. Degeneration. Mountain above, wind below. There is wind in the mountains, degeneration. Thus superior people rouse the people and nurture virtue. Degeneration is when things fall apart. Above is mountain, below is wind. This is wind in the mountains. Mountains can nurture beings, wind can stir beings. Stirring up and nurturing is the image of repairing degeneration. What superior people see in this is that the vital spirit in humans is like the people, and the natural reality in humans is virtue. When there is degeneration in the natural reality, it is due to not knowing how to rouse the vital spirit to cultivate and nurture it. Therefore, they rouse the people of the vital spirit and nurture the virtue of natural reality. Rousing the people must be like the wind gradually rising from below, ascending from lowliness to the heights. Nurturing virtue must be like the stability of a mountain as it nurtures beings, nurturing with richness and warmth. When one is able to nurture, the vital spirit becomes more and more active. When one is able to rouse, natural reality attains development. By rousing and nurturing, that which has not yet degenerated can be preserved, and that which has degenerated can be repaired. By gradual penetration, getting stronger with perseverance, one will eventually advance to the stage of ultimate good without evil, where there can be no degeneration. We'll now turn to James Dekorne, who, being a practitioner of the Tao himself, has compiled several different I-ming commentaries and synthesized them. He has his own editor's notes as well, and some quotes often from things like the Kabbalah. Hexagram 11, our primary hexagram, he calls harmony. Other titles might be peace, the symbol of successfulness, prospering, pervading, greatness, tranquility, prosperity, conjunction, major synthesis, hieros gamos, holy marriage. A quote from D.F. Hook, yang supporting yin and going to meet each other, good prospects for a marriage or partnership. Judgment, leg. Harmony shows the inferior departed and the great arrived. There will be good fortune with progress and success. Wilhelm/Baines, peace. The small departs, the great approaches. Good fortune, success. Blofeld, peace. The mean decline, the great and good approach. Good fortune and success. In the following hexagram, divorcement, where the trigrams symbolize heaven and earth in what would appear to be their normal positions, that arrangement is held to be disastrous. Whereas here, where they seem to be upside down, everything is propitious. This may be because heaven above earth is held to imply that the two are existing separately without the intercourse, which is the root of all growth. Whereas here, their intercourse is so absolute that heaven is actually supporting earth. Ritsama/Karcher, pervading, the small going, the great coming, significance growing. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of prospering and expanding. It emphasizes that continually spreading this prosperity through communicating is the adequate way to handle it. Wu, prosperity shows that the small stays outside and the great stays inside. It will be auspicious and pervasive. The image. Leg, the inner course of heaven and earth, the image of harmony. The wise ruler models his laws upon the principles of heaven and earth and enforces them for the people's benefit. Wilhelm/Baines, heaven and earth unite, the image of peace. Thus the ruler divides and completes the course of heaven and earth. He furthers and regulates the gifts of heaven and earth, and so aids the people. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes heaven and earth in communion. The component trigrams illustrate the kind of close intercourse just alluded to. This is surely the only way of depicting it under the circumstances, for any mingling of their component lines would produce quite different trigrams having no reference to heaven and earth. It is as though a mighty ruler, by careful regulation of affairs, has brought to fruition the way of heaven and earth. In harmony with the sequence of their motions, he gives help to people on every hand. Lu, heaven and earth are unified, symbolizing peace. The ruler reforms and completes the way of heaven and earth. He observes the appropriate methods of heaven and earth to direct the people. Wu, prosperity results from the interaction of heaven and earth. The king uses the wealth of the nation to achieve the ways of heaven and earth and to support their designs, so as to bring the sentiments of the people to the center. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Harmony shows the union of heaven and earth and all things consequently united. High and low, superior and inferior are all in accord. The lower trigram is made up of dynamic lines and the upper of magnetic lines. Strength is within, devotion is without. The superior man is inside and increasing. The inferior man is outside and decreasing. Leg. The judgment refers to the structure of the hexagram with the 3 dynamic lines below and the 3 magnetic lines above. The former are the great, active and vigorous. The latter are the inferior, passive and yielding. In many editions of the I Ching, beneath the hexagram of harmony, there appears hexagram number 54, propriety, which becomes harmony if the 3rd and 4th lines exchange places. A situation in which the motive forces are represented by 3 dynamic and the opposing by 3 magnetic lines must be progressive and successful. Harmony is called the hexagram of the 1st month of the natural spring, when for 6 months the forces of growth are in ascendance. Canon McClatchy translates, the image means that heaven and earth have now conjugal intercourse with each other, and the upper and lower classes unite together. Cheng Tzu says on the image that a ruler should frame his laws to operate like the seasons, so that the people exist within the structure of a natural rather than an arbitrary order. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Harmony depicts the waning of egotistical illusions and the waxing of true potential. The superior man allows his inner virtue to rule the psyche. Without changing lines, harmony suggests a fruitful union of opposites and consequent state of balance in the matter at hand. Wilhelm translates the opening phrase of the Confucian commentary as heaven and earth unite. Blofeld renders it, the celestial and the terrestrial forces have intercourse and all things are in communion with one another. Legge has already called attention to McClatchy's version of heaven and earth have now conjugal intercourse with each other. This image is one of the most universal symbols produced by the human psyche, the sexual union of spirit and matter, heaven and earth. This is the Hieros Gamos, or holy marriage of alchemy, the union of Shiva and Shakti in Hinduism, the conjoined male and female deities in Tantric Buddhism, the syzygies of Gnosticism, and the union of heaven and earth in the Kabbalah. A quote from M. Kaltenmark in Lao Tzu and Taoism. The notions of the couple and the sacred marriage held a very important place in ancient Chinese religious thinking. Every sacred power was twofold, male and female. But since only one half of the sacred couple was generally enclosed in any one sanctuary, the ritual was directed at reconstituting the whole. The complete being is male and female. Since most men neglect or repress their feminine nature, they are out of balance. Their male aggressiveness comes to the fore, and their whole vitality suffers. There can be no true holiness without a prior revitalization of femininity. Psychologically, the condition pictured by this hexagram is a metaphor for a high state of integration within the psyche. Here it is described in alchemical and Jungian terminology. A quote from M.E. Harding in Psychic Energy. The hermetic vessel is oneself. In it, the many pieces of psychic stuff scattered throughout one's world must be collected and fused into one, so making a new creation. In it must occur the union of the opposites called by the alchemists the conjunctio or marriage. This union, in psychological terms, corresponds to man with his feminine soul, the anima, or to a woman with her masculine counterpart, the animus. The union in each case constituting the inner marriage, the hieroskemos, by which the individual must become whole. To receive this hexagram does not necessarily mean that one has attained such a high integration, but it might indicate a step in that direction. The ultimate hieroskemos only occurs after all of the scattered and mismatched forces within the psyche have been brought together in correct alignment. In I Ching terms, when all of the lines are in their proper places with proper correlates as imaged in Hexagram 63, completion. Until this final union, there are innumerable lesser conjunctions which must first take place, a fact recognized in Tantric Yoga. A quote from Mircea Eliade in Myths, Rites, and Symbols. The final goal of the Tantricist is to reunite the two contrary principles, Shiva and Shakti, in his own body. When Shakti, who sleeps in the shape of a serpent at the base of his body, is awoken by certain yogic techniques, she moves through a medial channel by way of the chakras up to the top of the skull, where Shiva dwells, and unites with him. The union of the divine pair within his own body transforms the yogin into a kind of androgyny. But it must be stressed that androgenization is only one aspect of a total process, that of the reunion of the opposites. Actually, Tantric literature speaks of a great number of opposing pairs that have to be reunited. The establishment of the kingdom of heaven on earth is yet another metaphor for this process of psychic unification. Here's the Kabbalistic version, a quote from the Zohar. It is by the establishment of the celestial on the terrestrial, or of heaven upon earth, that the house of the king, humanity, will become united, and the king will rejoice thereat. For then the two kingdoms will become one, and the new and living way will become open to those who make themselves susceptible and receptive of the higher and diviner life. When these two worlds become united and blended together, they are symbolized by the union of the male and the female, the one being the complement of the other. Suggestions for meditation. Legge points out that many editions of the I Ching associate hexagram number 54 propriety with this figure. What do the changing third and fourth lines of propriety imply about the role of the ego in the work? The traditional name for propriety is the marrying maiden. How does that relate to the concept of the holy marriage in harmony? Compare the judgments and images of the two hexagrams and the role of the superior man in each. Note also the lesson implied when lines 2 and 5 in harmony unite to make hexagram number 63 completion. And to our supporting hexagram 18, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context of influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 18 he calls repair. Other titles might be Work on What Has Been Spoiled, The Symbol of Destruction, Decay, Arresting of Decay, Work After Spoiling, Fixing, Rectifying, Corrupting, Branch, Degeneration, Misdeeds. A quote from D.F. Hook, can refer to heredity and psychological traits. Judgment, leg. Successful progress is indicated for those who properly repair what has been spoiled. It is advantageous to cross the great stream. One should consider carefully the events 3 days before the turning point and the tasks remaining for 3 days afterward. Wilhelm/Baines, work on what has been spoiled has supreme success. It furthers one to cross the great water. Before the starting point, 3 days. After the starting point, 3 days. Blofeld, decay augurs sublime success and the advantage of crossing the great river or sea, i.e. of going on a journey or of going forward with one's plans. What has happened once will surely happen again, literally 3 days before the commencement, 3 days after the commencement. It would have been hard to make sense of these words were it not that the Confucian commentary on the text clearly explains them, hence the liberty I have taken with the text. Lu, work after spoiling, great success. It is of benefit to cross the great water. Before starting 3 days, after starting 3 days. This hexagram implies that although conditions are bad now, improvement can be expected. Ritsema/Karcher, corrupting, spring growing, harvesting, wading the great river, before seed burst 3 days, after seed burst 3 days. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of disorder, perversion, and putrefaction. It emphasizes that letting things rot away so they become obsolete is the adequate way to handle it. Cleary 1, correcting degeneration is greatly developmental. It is beneficial to cross great rivers. 3 days before the start, 3 days after the start. The way to correct degeneracy is not in empty tranquility without action. It is necessary to work in the midst of great danger and difficulty, to act in the dragon's pool and the tiger's lair. Only then can one restore one's original being, cultivating it into something indestructible. That's what we read from our first I Ching commentary, I-ming's The Taoist I Ching. Wu, misdeeds is great and pervasive. It will be advantageous to cross the big river. It would be advisable to begin an undertaking 3 days before Jia and examine the ongoing progress 3 days thereafter. The image of wind below the mountain forms repair. The superior man, in accordance with this, stimulates the virtue of the people. Wilhelm/Baines, the wind blows low on the mountain, the image of decay. Thus the superior man stirs up the people and strengthens their spirit. Ritsema/Karcher, below mountain possessing wind, corrupting. A Chunsu, or chief son, or superior person, uses rousing the commoners to nurture actualizing Tao. Actualized Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire. D is acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Cleary 1, there's wind in the mountains, degeneration. Thus superior people rouse the people and nurture virtue. Wu, there is wind at the foot of the mountain. This is misdeeds. Thus the Chunsi, or chief son, or superior person, arouses the people and nurtures his own virtue. Cleary 2, leaders thus arouse the people to nurture virtue. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, the dynamic trigram is above and the magnetic trigram is below. Pliancy is below and stopping above. These suggest troubled conditions verging on ruin, but repair brings order to all under heaven, and he who advances will encounter the business to be done. The end of confusion is the beginning of order. Such is the procedure of heaven. Leg. Repair means the performance of painful but necessary duties. It shows a situation in which things are going to ruin, as if through poison or venomous worms. In order to justify the auspice of progress and success, the duty of the figure is to rectify this and restore conditions to health. This will require a major effort, such as crossing the great stream, and the careful differentiation of the causes of the problem, as well as the measures taken to fix it. The attribute of the lower trigram is pliancy, and the upper represents stoppage or arrest. Hence, the feeble pliancy of decadence is stopped cold by the immovable mountain. The 3 days before and after the turning point symbolize the careful attention and differentiation necessary for any rectification to succeed. On the image, Zheng Tzu says, "When the wind encounters the mountain, it is driven back, and the things about are all scattered in disorder. Such is the emblem of the state denoted by repair." The nourishing of virtue appears especially in line 6. All the other lines belong to the helping of the people. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Repair means to set your house in order, analyze your choices before the renovation, and evaluate their consequences afterward. The superior man orders his thoughts and feelings, reforms old attitudes, and strengthens his will. Psychologically, to stimulate the virtue of the people, leg, is to rectify the components of a complex. To imagine any truly objective state of perception, we must include all that exists, the entire cosmos. Each differentiation of this, from atom to galaxy, is one slice out of an infinite whole. As a portion of the entirety, we are always linked with our ancestors in an infinite web of relationships, which includes our family history, our racial, cultural, historical heritage, and Homo sapiens as a species. Though seldom aware of them, it is useful to remember these links. Emanating from an unfathomable complexity, their karmically charged morphogenic fields are constantly shaping our lives. It follows that, although we perceive ourselves as separate from our ancestors, the separation is a subjective experience which is truly only in a temporally limited sense. Every line of repair, except 2 and 6, shows a son dealing with the troubles caused by his father. This reminds us of the biblical curse in Exodus 25, "For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me." The father archetype has a wide range of meanings. This extends from the primal spirit, God the Father, to a prior cause or intent in the psyche which has engendered a present condition. Psychologically interpreted, it is this later reading which usually applies. If a father symbolizes the cause, then a son is the effect. If the effect is imperfect, then to rectify it is also to rectify the original intent. To a large extent, our lives consist of well-intentioned but misguided choices which create less than perfect consequences. To modify our attitude or behavior so that it corrects errors in our original intent is to deal with the troubles caused by the father. For example, in a misconceived expression of affection, a parent allows his child unrestricted access to candy. As a consequence of this choice, the kid's teeth become rotten, and the only logical way to correct the original error is to now curtail his intake of sugar. The fact that this new choice will create stress in the relationship between parent and child is just a consequence of the original choice and has no bearing at all on what is correct in this situation. In some situations, this hexagram may be interpreted as a response to a karmic chain of cause and effect. A quote from Erlene Cheney in The Mystery of Death and Dying. To harmonize with the wisdom teachings, the scripture should read that the karma of the father is visited upon the child unto the 4th incarnation, not generation. The mistakes you made in the last 4 incarnations may be visited upon you in the form of karma flowing out of the heart seed atom in the present incarnation. Thus, what you fathered or created in your last incarnation may be the source, parent, of your karma today. You are a child of that parent today. You have inherited from that parent the you of the past, not your physical parents, all of your characteristics, weaknesses, and strengths. The interpretation of any oracle response can only be as profound as our minds are prepared to accept. As moderns, we find it difficult to empathize with ancestor worship, yet properly understood, it can provide useful insights into the work. In the unconscious realm, all time is immediate, not sequential, and the objective psyche consists of a non-temporal web of forces, shading from personal to universal. This means that if we have a complex engendered in us by our father, for example, we can reasonably assume that he was passing on what he received from his own parents. In this way, the unresolved complexes of the ancestors shape our personalities. They live in and through us right now, even if they had their birth in forefathers long forgotten. This is a kind of near immortality. Individuals may die, but beliefs, attitudes, complexes live as long as they have receptive vessels to inhabit. This is probably the enigma, or the engine of karma. To the extent that an ancestral chain of causality still motivates our choices, we are totally responsible for setting right what has been spoiled by the father. Suggestions for meditation. Most people have some level of unfinished business with their parents. Psychologists would have little to do if this weren't true. It can be a healing ritual to set up an altar to a deceased parent and meditate there on the stresses that still remain between you. To approach the situation without judgment, to realize non-logically that forces pre-existing you provoked the condition as much as your parent did, will elicit much insight. Be especially aware of the presence of the past and the illusion of linear time. Is it possible somehow to be your own great-grandfather? Ancestor worship of this sort can be profoundly therapeutic. And now getting back to our primary hexagram 11, to read our changing lines 1 and 6, which are our most focused point of the reading. They put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements. Changing line 1 has the general context of inklings, just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. Changing line, did I say 6? I meant 1 if I said 6. Changing line 6 has beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. So changing line 1 and 6 in our supporting hexagram harmony. Line 1, leg. The first line dynamic suggests the idea of grass pulled up and bringing with it other stalks with whose roots it is connected. Advance on the part of its subject will be fortunate. If line 1 and 6 don't completely agree, we're to gnaw on that and see what that might mean for us. Wilhelm/Baines, when ribbon grass is pulled up, the sod comes with it, each according to his kind. Undertakings bring good fortune. Blowfold, when grass is uprooted, what is attached to it is pulled up as well. It is an auspicious time for advancing according to plan. This would seem to mean that we are likely to get what we seek, plus something more. Slofnacy, plucking the kogan grass stem with its roots, to be upright is auspicious. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, his will is set on what is external to himself. Wilhelm/Baines, the will is directed outward. Blowfold, the mind is outward looking, i.e. fixed upon the people's welfare. This really means the mind of the superior man whose duty it is to look after the people's welfare. If he is truly a superior man, when his mind is turned inward, it is to meditate upon and eradicate his faults. When outward turned, it is concentrated upon his duty to the ruler, provided the king is worthy, and his care of the people. Ritzema/Karcher, purpose located outside indeed. Cleary 2 means focusing the will beyond. Wu, because the aspiration is to go upward. Leg, the symbolism of the first line is suggested by the 3 dynamic lines of the lower trigram all together and all possessed by the same instinct to advance. The movement of the first line will be supported by the others and will be fortunate. He has his will set on what is external to himself, means that he is bent on going forward. Notes and paraphrases. Sue. At the outset, the man brings others of like mind with him as he enters public office during a period of prosperity. Wing. Actions that you might now take, particularly those actions that are connected to the welfare of others, will meet with good fortune. You will attract others and find cooperation among those who have goals similar to your own. Editor. This line changes the hexagram to number 46, pushing upward. Another image of growth with a corresponding line which further reinforces the idea of upward progress. Advancing upward with the welcome of those above him. Grassroots are a foundation, source, or essence, as in grassroots support in a political campaign. To uproot is to remove from a fixed or entrenched position. Other stocks are analogous to elements, fellow travelers. The image suggests the positive alteration of a heretofore static situation. A quote from M.E. Harding in Psychic Energy. When the shadow has been made conscious and has been accepted as part of the personality, its contents and part of its energies are added to those of the ego, so that a further development of the I results. Similarly, when the anima or animus has been united to the conscious psyche by a process described in many religious systems as an inner marriage, a further enlargement of consciousness results, and the conscious personality begins to display those qualities of dignity and stability which are the marks of the unique or individuated personality. Individuation is a process that C.G. Jung developed that talked about integration of all the different disparate components of a shattered ego. James Dekorne wraps up Changing Line 1 with two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A is removal from an entrenched position advances the general welfare. Go beyond yourself. I'm going to read that again. A, removal from an entrenched position advances the general welfare. Go beyond yourself. And B, a union of similar forces moves progressively. And then Changing Line 6 is the general context of beyond the main action, asking what comes next. Leg. The sixth line magnetic shows us the city wall returned to the moat. It is not the time to use the army. The subject of the line may announce her orders to the people of her own city, but however firm and correct she may be, she will have cause for regret. Wilhelm/Baines. The wall falls back into the moat. Use no army now. Make your commands known within your own town. Perseverance brings humiliation. Blofeld. The wall has tumbled into the moat. Do not put up a fight, but just maintain order in the village. Although this is the right course, blame cannot be avoided. We shall be blamed for not being more aggressive even though circumstances more than warrant our failure to be so. Wu. The moat around the city wall has dried. No military action is advisable. The local authority has given conflicting orders to the townspeople. The people should be persevering, but even so, they may still feel humiliated. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. The governmental orders have long been in disorder. Wilhelm/Baines. His plans fall into confusion. Blofeld. This signifies a troubled destiny. Ritzema/Karcher. One's fate disarrayed indeed. Cleary. 2. Order is in disarray. Wu. The orders have been contradictory. Leg. The course denoted by harmony has been run, and will be followed by one of a different and unhappy character. The earth dug from the moat had been built up to form a projecting wall, but it is now again fallen into the ditch. War will only aggravate the evil, and however the ruler may address good proclamations to the people of the capital, the coming evil cannot be altogether averted. Notes and paraphrases. Sue. The government has long been in disarray. Despite all proclamations to the contrary, ill fortune is at hand. War will only aggravate the situation. The subject should submit to fate, keep inwardly free, and ameliorate the harm done to those nearest him. The bad time will pass. Wing. A decline has begun. It is of the external world, and nothing can be done to hold it back. Such attempts will bring you humiliation. Instead, devote your time to strengthening your ties with those close to you. Editor. A walled city is a concentration of similar elements in one place. Within its walls dwell all of the factors which go to make up whatever it is that the city represents, perhaps an attitude or belief. For example, suppose I believe that the world is flat. All of the thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and emotions which contribute to this belief live in the city. If I have an experience which strongly challenges my belief, say a photograph taken of the Earth from outer space which definitely proves that my belief in a flat Earth is incorrect, then one could say that the walls of my city have collapsed. Now I could fight this and say that obviously the outer space photograph is a fake. I could try to maintain my belief regardless of all the evidence to the contrary. However, the realistic response to the situation would not be to use the army, defend the indefensible, but to just let the dust settle. Inform the people in the city, the now outmoded thoughts and feelings, that the situation has changed, and that the best response is to sit tight and see what emerges from the rubble. A quote from B. Ruto in The Psychic Grid. A community's conviction system is its castle, a walled city to protect it against alternate interpretations of the great and unknown reality in the midst of which it must somehow live. James Dekorne wraps up changing line 6 into one possible distinct definition, or succinct, and it's under A. A distinction is dissolved, a belief is shattered. Don't fight it, let it be. Change is in process and confusion prevails. Control your emotions and maintain order within the psyche. Despite turmoil, take no action. Allow the transformation to complete itself. We will now turn to Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. She calls our primary hexagram 11 flow. Key questions: how will you work with this extraordinary potential? How can you channel the flow of energy to create harmony? Oracle, flow, small goes, great comes. Good fortune, creating success. Flow is a sign of the free and full expression of tremendous creative energy. It is the name of China's most sacred mountain, Tai, which is imbued with spiritual power. The king would make great offerings at its summit to establish a flourishing, peaceful relationship with heaven. This is a time to create harmony with the greater flow, letting its energy pour into creative manifestation as a river flows down into a fertile valley. Pettiness is swept away downstream, and the way opens up for free communication. Great things become possible. The true scale of things is revealed, dwarfing your smaller concerns. You sense the powers that surge through your life and know how far beyond your control they are, yet you can enter into true relationship with them and participate in flow. Image. Heaven and earth communicate. Flow. The prince enriches and completes the way of heaven and earth, upholds and assists the order of heaven and earth to support and protect the people. Creative force flows through the earth, potential joins with the space for growth. Everything is possible. The prince blessed with flow wholly invests himself in bringing it to fruition in the human realm. He weaves the powers of inspiration and realization together into a synergistic context for creative work. To bring out its full potential, he will work actively to bring all people, energies, and areas of life into harmony inside its embrace. Sequence. Flow follows from hexagram 10, treading. Treading and also flow, and then there is peace. And so flow follows. Flow means flowing together. Treading behind the tiger, you learn to respond, dance, and move skillfully with greater powers. With flow, you come into close relationship with them. In treading, the context is someone stepping on a tiger's tail, and the changing lines each show whether or not that venture is successful. If you are able to tread on the tiger's tail, you can use the power of the tiger as your own. So treading behind the tiger, you learn to respond, dance, and move skillfully with greater powers. With flow, you come into close relationship with them. To be tranquil with such potent energy, rather than engulfed by it, you will need to know how to tread. Pair. Flow is paired and contrasted with hexagram 12, blocked. Blocked and flow are of opposite kind. In flow, heaven and earth connect. In blocked, they separate. Flow communicates, blocked closes the channel. Flow makes everything possible, blocked means nothing worthwhile can be achieved. And our supporting hexagram 18, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. She calls hexagram 18 corruption. Key questions: what is behind this trouble? What is the hidden cause? Oracle: corruption, creating success from the source, fruitful to cross the great river, before the seed day, 3 days, after the seed day, 3 days. In ancient China, ancestors angered by neglect would send sickness and misfortune. This is corruption. Something dark, like a curse, lurking under the surface of life and manifesting as patterns of negative experience. We don't have to believe in angry ancestors to be haunted by corruption, whether we inherit its darkness from our past, our culture, or through our parents. When you receive hexagram 18, it is time to examine those old patterns at last, to seek out their source and give it due honor and attention. When you understand where your experience comes from, you can restore the creative flow and make a genuinely new beginning. You will need to commit yourself to the journey and take the risk of crossing the great river into unknown territory. And you will need to pay careful attention to the process. Before seed day, which marks the beginning of a new cycle of time, you'll need to identify the source of the corruption and prepare for change. Afterwards, you need to pay attention to the needs of the new growth. Each of these phases has only a modest duration. You're invited to attend and examine, but not to dwell on this change for a lifetime. Image. Below the mountain is the wind, corruption. A noble one rouses the people to nurture character. The mountain traps and limits the movement of the wind, making for stale, unhealthy air, and invisible corruption, poisoning from within. But a noble one transforms this picture. He stirs people up like the wind and nurtures their character like a sheltering mountain. This can work among people or within an individual. Inner movement and awakening transform limitation into a protective covering for growth. Sequence. Corruption follows from hexagram 17, following. Following people with joy means there are things to be done, and so corruption follows. Corruption means things to be done. Following is simply guided from moment to moment by the invisible currents beneath the surface of events. Eventually, the flow carries you to a place where there are things to be done, and it's time to interrogate the hidden causes and bring them into the light of day. We will now read our changing lines 1 and 6 that are our most focused part of the reading. Take precedence over all other elements and put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They may not agree with each other, and if that's the case, we're just to gnaw on that ourselves and see what that could mean for us. Line 1 has the general context of inklings, just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. And changing line 6 has beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 1 in our primary hexagram 11. pulling up thatch grass, roots entangled with more of its kind, setting out to bring order, good fortune. If you try to pull up a single stem of thatch grass, you find it's connected to a dense, continuous web of roots below the surface. Here, at the entry into flow, acting on one point in the web can set it all in motion. Sustained effort in small things will create synergy and momentum. This is an unusually powerful juncture. A single choice has more connections and consequences than you imagine. If you focus now on the harmony you want to experience, you can use this moment to start creating it step by step. And changing line 6, the bulwarks fall back into the moat. Don't use the army. From your own city, declaring the mandate. Constancy means shame. The walls are in the moat. The city crumbles back to where it came from, and the ground is leveled again. There is no call for armies here. Flow has brought change, leaving nothing for them to attack or defend. The old constructions are simply no longer viable. There is no position to hold anymore. But at the summit of Mount Tai, a new ruler has come into harmony with the spirits and received the mandate from heaven. Declare this mandate from your city. Announce your authentic purpose from your own seat of authority. The soldiers can become farmers again and cultivate new fields. We'll now turn to a randomly card-drawn chapter of the Tao Te Ching, which we've already got. Maybe more than we need. Let's do it. 72, 43, 39, and 79. Be reading from the Tao Te Ching that's been translated by Jia Fu Fang and Jane English. Chapter 72. When men lack a sense of awe, there will be disaster. Do not intrude in their homes. Do not harass them at work. If you do not interfere, they will not weary of you. Therefore the sage knows himself but makes no show, has self-respect but is not arrogant. He lets go of that and chooses this. Chapter 43. The softest thing in the universe overcomes the hardest thing in the universe. That without substance can enter where there is no room. Hence I know the value of non-action. Teaching without words and work without doing are understood by very few. These things from ancient times arise from one. The sky is whole and clear. The earth is whole and firm. The spirit is whole and strong. The valley is whole and full. The 10,000 things are whole and alive. Kings and lords are whole, and the country is upright. All these are in virtue of wholeness. The clarity of the sky prevents its falling. The firmness of the earth prevents its splitting. The strength of the spirit prevents its being used up. The fullness of the valley prevents its running dry. The growth of the 10,000 things prevents their dying out. The leadership of kings and lords prevents the downfall of the country. Therefore the humble is the root of the noble. The low is the foundation of the high. Princes and lords consider themselves orphaned, widowed, and worthless. Do they not depend on being humble? Too much success is not an advantage. Do not tinkle like jade or clatter like stone chimes. and 79. After a bitter quarrel, some resentment must remain. What can one do about it? Therefore, the sage keeps his half of the bargain, but does not exact his due. A man of virtue performs his part, but a man without virtue requires others to fulfill their obligations. The Tao of heaven is impartial. It stays with good men all the time.